Matt Davis. After 2 tours in Iraq, Matt Davis appreciates the scenery here in the gorge of the New River.
There's really nowhere in the world I would rather be than West Virginia.
It's what he dreamed of during his time in the desert. The trees, the mountains, and whipping through these rapids, a favorite pastime since he returned.
Whoa.
Unlike many of my classmates, Matt never intended to make the Marines a career and never thought about fighting a war.
It was kind of the furthest thing from my mind. Oddly enough, when I joined the Marine Corps, it wasn't, I did not factor that into my decision.
When do you think that idea, what you expected to happen, changed for you?
I mean, probably the same day as it did for everybody else, September 11th, 2001.
Matt was stationed in Okinawa. He remembers a friend banging on his door.
But he was very upset. So what's going on? And he said, well, dude, we're going to war. And I think it was just kind of a collective epiphany.
Were you ever wondering how the events of 9/11 led you to Iraq?
We never would have gone without 9/11. I'm not saying that connection, justifies the invasion or anything, but it certainly wouldn't have happened without 9/11, without the outrage.
For Matt, Iraq was a revelation.
I got to go out and meet a bunch of Iraqis. And it was an amazing place. It was in the eastern part of the country. It was predominantly Shia. April, May of 2003, the Shia were delighted to have us around. And I remember going out in town without a weapon, which I know is, I had a pistol, but no M16, no body armor, no armored Humvees.
He left active duty, came home, enrolled in law school, but decided to remain in the reserves. A fateful decision.
My very first day of law school, I got called up.
So you go back and it's almost 2 years after the first time you're there. Had anything changed?
Yeah, actually, a lot of things had changed, and I should probably say too that this time I was in the far western part of the country, or just a couple miles east of the border of Syria. We encountered Algerians, Syrians, Jordanians, Saudis. They were doing terrible things, not only to us, but in some cases to the Iraqis.
By the end of tour number 2, Matt wasn't taking any chances. He got out of the reserves, but like his fellow graduates, he can't quite get the Marines out of him.
And I miss the Marines.
What do you miss about the Marines?
Everything. I miss the responsibility. I miss, feeling like I'm serving my country. I miss the camaraderie. But in the same breath, I'm happier than I've ever been. Back here in West Virginia with my wife.
Mike Weston. You might call Mike Weston the accidental Marine.
Actually, it was not something that I had planned to do. I had been in law school and finished my first year, flown out to get a job in Northern California with a law firm in Silicon Valley, and on the flight back there were a bunch of Marine reservists on the plane. We ended up drinking for most of the flight, and by the time I landed, I decided to enlist. I knew nothing about the Marine Corps. I thought they were Mormons when they first got on the plane, and they were far from it.
You thought they were Mormons?
Just short hair. They were dressed for libo, so they had khakis and collared shirts, and I just assumed they were coming back from mission.
You were in law school, but you weren't just in any law school.
No, I just finished my first year in Harvard. My parents were horrified. My peers were baffled. Everybody was going
to say nothing of Marine recruiters who tried to talk him into becoming an officer instead of an enlisted grunt.
I couldn't even tell you how many waivers I had to sign to enlist. They would run me by different officers, increasing in rank, and to try and talk me out of it. And said, we can bring you in as a JAG, as a judge advocate.
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you. Now get up, get on your feet.
But Mike still remembered the brutal Marine drill instructor in full metal jacket, and he wanted that full treatment.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to go to Parris Island, and I wanted to be in the infantry. I think it's to test yourself to see if you have it in you.
That was 1995. The first Gulf War was over, and Mike Weston's Marine Corps didn't have a battle to wage.
And that is where you validate yourself as a Marine, is in combat.
The combat he longed for came soon enough. Mike deployed for the invasion of Iraq. It was there he experienced the emotions that would make every other profession pale by comparison.
I remember we were about to cross the Tigris River, and we were leaving in about an hour or two, and could barely sleep that night, just out of fear that I had not done everything I could do to make sure that they were going to be all right.
Mike says he compared being in Iraq with being at Harvard Law, where he says the focus is mostly on making money.
There's a sense of entitlement to people at those institutions, that they know they're going to be in positions of influence and power. We've had the opportunity to go and do meaningful work, and you didn't necessarily expect that was going to happen.
Iraq, meaningful work?
Absolutely. Like I said, there's nothing I have ever done that feels as important as what I have done there. And that's a hard thing to give up. It becomes almost addictive. You feel that every decision you make is significant. And you don't feel that day to day. You go to the store, you go rent a movie, you go for a bike ride, and you come back, and sometimes all you can think about is going back over.
Mike did go back over in 2005 and again in 2006 to 2007. In between tours, he joined the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA. Now he patrols these streets in the Richmond ghetto. It's a job, he says, that feels a lot like what he did in Iraq.
There's certainly no shortage of drug crime for us to deal with, and it keeps you very busy. I think the use of the word war for both the war on terror and the war on drugs is unfortunate and fairly inaccurate. They're not wars. Terrorism is always going to be an effective technique. Drugs are always going to have an appeal to people. It's more a process, that by doing what we do, we manage a problem.
So Mike Weston, the accidental Marine, maybe less a warrior after all, more a problem manager. Bill Marple.
Come on in!
Come on in!
Bill Marple is a tracker, a survivalist, a seeker, and a believer. He's an instructor at Tom Brown Jr.'s Tracker School in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey.
There's going to be a max set of push-ups.
This week, he's testing students who want to volunteer for search and rescue work on their wilderness survival skills and physical fitness.
What I'm trying to do here is the same thing I was trying to do there, which is make a difference for the better in the planet as I see it.
There is a rock, a war Bill almost missed entirely. After officer training, Bill went into the infantry, but he saw no action. He had already filed papers to get out of the Marine Corps when his company commander announced an opening.
7-month deployment to Iraq with 2nd Marine Division for anybody who wants to go, and he didn't even look at me because he figured I wouldn't want to do it. We had a day, we had 24 hours to make a decision, and I made my decision. I made it in minutes after he said it. My job was to coordinate information flow that was coming in from the battlefield and then put it into simple terms, so that commanders could understand what was happening.
So you were tracking Marines all over?
I was tracking Marines, soldiers, sailors, convoys, both ours and civilian convoys, contractors, aircraft, and anyone who came into Al-Anbar province, basically. Taking care of Marines who have been killed. Every day we were finding Iraqis who had been executed by other Iraqis, little children who had been tortured to death by insurgents.
Bill says he felt responsible for all those lives. And even though he wasn't getting shot at every day, it was hard to handle.
Extremely stressed. I don't know how to really quantify it, to be honest with you. It has continued to bother me since I've left the Marines.
But he's not sorry he went.
All my friends had gone over. You dedicate your life to the Marine Corps, and you want to go be a part of that.
And this seems a lot more relaxed than carrying guns and
This is
ammo.
way relaxed, man. Well, I kind of missed that part, to be honest with you. But
Well, you've traded the gun for a bow.
The wilderness can provide you as much of an adrenaline surge as you want, So I don't need to go carrying around that stuff anymore.
Now he's part of something completely different, a spiritual calling.
I'm out here amongst the trees, in the bushes, and I'm looking at the tracks, and I feel a sense of peace, and I feel a sense of connection that I've never felt anywhere else. I found a closer connection to the earth than I've ever found anywhere else. And I'm hoping to share that with other people.
6 Marines, 6 different paths, bound by war. Why did we fight? Mostly for each other, a band of brothers. But whose responsibility is it to ensure the wars we're sent to are just? The individual Marines? We follow orders. Seeing my classmates evoked more than just nostalgia. It raised serious questions about war and its brutal nature. What are the unintended consequences of just following orders? What happens when you've been fighting so long you've forgotten what you're fighting for? What about entire industries and towns that need war to survive? We set out on a year-long odyssey looking for answers, that took us from the battle-scarred rice paddies of Vietnam and Laos to the rebel-infested jungles of Peru to the desert prisons of Iraq and beyond. And the next 5 weeks, we'll take you there too as we explore the devastating and inevitable cycle of war.